Hello, good day ma'am and good day classmates. I am Mondigo Claridette Jane and I'm going to present to you the story of Mahabharata. This is the old generation of the Mahabharata. King Janamejay's Shantanu, the king of Hastinapura, has a short-lived marriage with the goddess Ganga and has a son, Devavrata, which they called the Bhishma, a great warrior who becomes the heir apparent. Many years later, when King Shantanu goes hunting, he sees Satyavati, the daughter of the chief of fishermen, and asks her father for her hand. Her father refuses to consent to the marriage unless Shantanu promises to make any future son of Satyavati to king upon his death. To resolve this father's dilemma, Devavrata agrees to relinquish his right to the throne. As the fisherman is not sure about the prince's children honoring the promise, Devavrata also takes a vow of lifelong celibacy to guarantee his father's promise. Shantanu has two sons by Satyavati named Chitrangada and Vichitravirya. Upon Shantanu's death, Chitrangada becomes king. He lives a very short, uneventful life, and there he dies. Vichitravirya, the younger son, rules Hastinapura. Meanwhile, the king of Kasi arranges a Swayamvara for his three daughters, neglecting to invite the royal family of Hastinapura. To arrange the marriage of young Vichitravirya, Bhishma attends the Swayamvara of the three princesses Amba, Ambika, and Ambilika, uninvited, and proceeds to abduct them. Ambika and Ambalika consent to be married to Vichitravirya. The oldest princess, Amba, however, informs Bhishma that she wishes to marry the king of Shalva, whom Bhishma defeated at their Swayamvara. Bhishma lets her leave to marry the king of Shalva, but Shalva refuses to marry her, still smarting at his humiliation at the hands of Bhishma. Amba then returns to marry Bhishma, but he refuses due to his vow of celibacy. Amba becomes enraged and becomes Bhishma's bitter enemy, holding him responsible for her plight. She vows to kill him in her next life. Later, she is reborn to King Drupada as Shikhandi and causes Bhishma's fall with the help of Arjuna in the battle of Kurukshetra. When Vichitravirya dies young without any heirs, Satyavati asks her first son Vyasa to father children with the widows. The eldest, Ambika, shuts her eyes when she sees him, and so son Dhritarashtra is born blind. Ambalika turns pale and bloodless upon seeing him, and thus her son Pandu is born pale and unhealthy. Due to the physical challenges of the first two children, Satyavati asks Vyasa to try once again. However, Ambika and Ambalika send their maid instead to Vyasa's room. Vyasa fathers a third son named Vidura by the maid. He is born healthy and grows up to be one of the wisest characters in the Mahabharata. He serves as prime minister, or what they called Mahatma, to King Pandu and King Dhritarashtra. When the princes grow up, Dhritarashtra is about to be crowned by Bhishma when Vidura intervenes and uses his knowledge of politics to assert that a blind person cannot be a king. This is because a blind man cannot control and protect his subjects or his people. The throne is then given to Pandu because of Dhritarashtra's blindness. Pandu marries twice, to Kunti and Madri. Dhritarashtra marries Gandhari, a princess from Gandhara, who blindfolds herself for the rest of her life so that she may feel the pain that her husband feels. Her brother Shakuni is enraged by this and vows to take revenge on Kuru family. One day, when Pandu is relaxing in the forest, he hears the sound of a wild animal. He shoots an arrow in the direction of the sound. However, the arrow hits the sage Kendama, who was engaged in the sexual act in the guise of a deer. He curses Pandu that if he engages in a sexual act, he will die. Pandu then retires to the forest along with his two wives, and his brother Dhritarashtra rules thereafter despite his blindness. Pandu's older queen Conte, however, had been given a boon by sage Durvasa that she could invoke any god using a special mantra. Conte uses this boon to ask Dharma, the god of justice, Vayu, the god of the wind, and Indra, the lord of heavens, for sons. She gives birth to 3 sons, named Yudhishthira, Bhima, and Arjuna. Kunti shares her mantra with the younger queen, Madre, who bears the twins Nakula and Sahadeva through the Ashwini twins. However, Pandro and Madre indulge in love-making, and then Pandu dies. Madre commits suicide out of remorse. Kunti raises the 5 brothers, who are from then on usually referred to the Pandava brothers. Dhritarashtra has 100 sons and 1 daughter named Dusala through Gadhari. They all born after the birth of Yudhishthira. These are the Kaurava brothers, the eldest being Duryodhana and the second Dushasana. Other Kaurava brothers were Vikarma and Sukarna. The rivalry and enmity between them and the Pandava brothers from their youth and into manhood leads to Kurukshetra war. After the deaths of their mother Madri and their father Pandu, the Pandavas and their mother Kunti return to the palace of Hastinapur. Yudhishthira is made crown prince by Dhritarashtra under considerable pressure from his courtiers. Dhritarashtra wanted his son Duryodhana to become king and lets his ambition get in the way of preserving justice. Shakuni, Duryodhana, and Dushasana plot to get rid of the Pandavas. Shakuni calls the architect Purukana to build a palace of flammable materials like iyak and ghee. He then arranges the Pandavas and the Queen Mother Kunti to stay there, intending to set it alight. However, the Pandavas are warned by their wise uncle named Vedura, who sends them a miner to dig a tunnel so they can escape and have their safety into hiding. During this time, Bhima marries a demoness named Hidimbi and has a son, Gatotkacha. Back in Hastinapur, the Pandavas and Kunti are presumed dead. While they were hiding, the Pandavas learned of a Shwayamvara, which is taking place for the hand of the Panchala princess Draupadi. The Pandavas disguised as Brahmins and came to witness the event. Meanwhile, Krishna, who was already befriended Draupadi, tells her to look out for Arjuna. The task was to string a mighty steel bow and shoot a target on the ceiling, which was the eye of a moving artificial fish while looking at its reflection in oil below. After all the princes fail, many being unable to lift the bow, Karna proceeds to the attempt but is interrupted by Draupadi, who refuses to marry Asuta. After this, the Shwayamvara is opened to the Brahmins, leading Arjuna to win the contest and marry Draupadi. The Pandavas return home and inform their meditating mother that Arjuna has won a competition and to look at what they have brought back. Without looking, Kunti asks them to share whatever Arjuna has won among themselves, thinking it to be alms. Thus, Draupadi ends up being the wife of the Pandava brothers. After the wedding, the Pandava brothers are invited back to Hastinapura or Hastinapur. The Kuru family, elders, and relatives negotiate and broker a split of the kingdom, with the Pandavas obtaining and demanding only a wild forest inhabited by Takshaka, the king of snakes, and his family. Through hard work, the Pandavas can build a new glorious capital for the territory at Indraprastha. Shortly after this, Arjuna elopes with and then marries Krishna's sister named Subhadra. Yudhishthira wishes to establish his position as a king. He seeks Krishna's advice and then Krishna advises him. And after due preparation and the elimination of some opposition, Yudhishthira carries a Rajasoya Yagna ceremony. He is thus recognized as preeminent among kings. The Pandavas have a new palace, but for them, by Maya the Danava. They have invited their Kaurava cousins to Indraprastha. Duryodhana walks around the palace and mistakes a glossy floor for water and will not step in. After being told of his error, he then sees a pond and assumes it is not water and falls in. Bhima, Arjun, the twins, and the servants laugh at him. In popular adaptations, this insult is wrongly attributed to Draupadi, even though in a Sanskrit epic, it was the Pandavas who had insulted Duryodhana. Enraged by the insult and jealous by seeing the wealth of the Pandavas, Duryodhana decides to host a dice game on Shukani's suggestion. This suggestion was accepted by Yudhishthira despite the rest of the Pandavas advising him not to play. Shakuni, Duryodhana's uncle, now arranges a dice game, playing against Yudhishthira, who loaded dice. Shakuni's dice had magic as they were made by the bones of his siblings. In the dice game, Yudhishthira loses all his wealth, then his kingdom as well. Yudhishthira then gambles his brothers, himself, and finally his wife into servitude. The jubilant Kauravas insult the Pandavas in their helpless state and even try to disrobe Draupadi in front of the entire court. But Draupadi's disrobe is prevented by Krishna, who miraculously make her dress endless, therefore it couldn't be removed. Dhritarashtra, Bhishma, and the other elders are aghast at the situation. But Duryodhana is adamant that there is no place for two crowned princes in Hastinapura. Against his wishes, Dhritarashtra orders for another dice game. The Pandavas are required to go into exile for 12 years, and in the 13th year, they must remain hidden. If they are discovered by the Kauravas in the 13th year of their exile, then they will be forced into exile for another 12 years. The Pandavas spent 13 years in exile, and there were many adventures of course during this time. The Pandavas acquire many divine weapons given by gods during the period of their exile. They also prepare alliances for a possible future conflict. They spend their final year in disguise in the court of the king Virata, and they are discovered just after the end of the year. At the end of their exile, they try to negotiate a return into Indraprastha with Krishna as their emissary. However, the negotiation fails because Duryodhana objected that they were discovered in the 13th year of their exile and the return of their kingdom was not agreed upon. Then the Pandavas fought the Kauravas, claiming the rights over Indraprastha. The two sides summoned vast armies to their help and line up at Kurukshetra for a war. The kingdoms of Panchala, Dwaraka, Kasi, Kekaya, Nigadha, Matsya, Chedi, Pandyas, Telenga, and the Yadus of Mathura and some other clans like the Paramakambohas were allied with the Panjabas. The allies of the Kauravas included the kings of Pragyotesha, Anga, Kikaya, Sidesa, Mahishmati, Avanti in Madhyadesa, Madra, Gandhara, Baleka people, Kambohas, and many others. Before war being declared, Balarama had expressed his unhappiness at the developing conflict and leaves to go on a pilgrimage. Thus, he does not take part in the battle itself. Krishna takes part in the non-combatant role as charioteer for Arjuna and offers Narayani Sena consisting of Abera Gopas to the Kauravas to fight on their side. Before the battle, Arjuna, noticing that the opposing army includes his cousins and relatives, including his grandfather Bhishma and his teacher Drona, has grave doubts about the fight. He falls into despair and refuses to fight. At this time, Krishna reminds him his duty as a Kshatriya to fight for a righteous cause in the famous Bhagavad Gita section of the epic. Though initially sticking with the chivalrous notions of warfare, both sides soon adopt dishonorable tactics. At the end of the 18th day battle, only the Pandamas, Satyaki, Krepa, Ashwatthama, Kretavarma, Yuyutsu, and Krishna survive. Yudhishthira becomes king of Hastinapur, and Gandhari curses Krishna that the downfall of his clan is imminent. After seeing the carnage, Gandhari, who had lost all his sons, curses Krishna to be a witness to a similar annihilation of his family, for though divine and capable of stopping the war, he had not done so. Krishna accepts the curse, which bears fruit 36 years later. The Pandavas, who had ruled their kingdom meanwhile, decide to renounce everything. Clad in skins and rags, they retire to the Himalaya and climb towards heaven in their bodily form, and the stray dogs travels with them. One by one, the brothers and Draupadi fall in their way. As each one stumbles, Yudhishthira gives the reason for their fall. Only the virtuous Yudhishthira, who had tried everything to prevent the carnage, and the dog remain. The dog reveals himself to be the god Yama, Dharmaraha, and then takes him to the underworld where he sees his siblings and wife. After explaining the nature of the test, Yama takes Yudhishthira back to heaven and explains that it was necessary to expose him to the underworld because any ruler has to visit the underworld at least once. Yama then assures him that his siblings and wife would join him in heaven after they had been exposed to the underworld for measures of time according to their vices. Arjuna's grandson Parikshit goes after them and dies bitten by a snake. His furious son Janamejaya decides to perform a snake sacrifice, or what they called the Sarpasatra, to destroy the snakes. It is at this sacrifice that the tale of his ancestors is narrated to him. At the end of the epic or the story, the Mahabharata mentions that Karna, Pandavas, Draupadi, and Dhritarashtra's sons eventually ascended to Svarga and attained the state of the gods and bonded together. And they're now serene and free from anger from all the Pandavas and Kauravas.